Welcome to Screen Quest, a podcast where a fellowship of film lovers and armchair movie experts plays film roulette. I am one of your hosts, Chris Waterman, joined by May Finch.
Hey, everyone.
And of course, Will Rotondi.
Hey, what's going on?
Not too much. I am glad we're back to record another episode. Not a whole lot's happened since we last recorded in my personal life, but I did enjoy the movie that we're going to be talking about today, Crimson Tide. Thought it was a banger. Just like spoiler for the later discussion, that is the movie of the show. I'm very excited to talk about it. How about you guys? Anything new?
Not a ton. I was sick all weekend. I played a bunch of Stardew Valley. So I have a new farm. I guess that's new.
That's amazing.
Oh, yeah.
That game looks very soothing. I've never played it for more than a half hour or so, but it looks very soothing. Yeah. Is it?
Yes, it's very soothing, but it really ropes you in if it's your kind of game. Yeah. So it's ideal if either you just have a wide open weekend and you can play for hours and get a lot done, or if, you know, like I was, you're sick and just need a distraction.
We're very glad that you're feeling better. You're back in video form.
I am. Yep. I am three-dimensional again.
Woo!
Animated.
How about you, Will? Anything new going on?
We were talking off mic earlier. My week was catching up on like schoolwork, and then when I had a break, I decided to refresh my knowledge of Rec 2 in honor of our last podcast, and then continue forth into Rec 3 as a double feature, which I will say two completely different films, stylistically and, well, I guess as well as quality-wise. I'm sorry, Rec 3, no love. But it was definitely worth it to see what it was like and remind myself what I sort of remembered from Rec 2 and how I enjoyed that as an extension of the original. I think it really added to the franchise. So jury's still out on Rec 4. Haven't gotten around to that one yet, but from what it looks like, it could go either way. So hopefully better, but that's about it.
One of these days, I'm going to go through and watch all of the Paranormal Activity films, because I know those go all over the place quality wise, and I've only seen 1 and 2. I thought 2 was I remember thinking it was excessively boring when I saw it, because the first one was so unique in its setup, and I felt like 2 was very much more the same, but like a little bit longer, and I felt like I saw a lot of it coming. I heard that they go interesting places in some of the others, even if it does kind of go all over the place quality wise. So maybe someday. Nice. The Rec franchise, another one. Sorry, go ahead.
I was just gonna say, I feel like the horror franchise, like the horror genre more than any other genre, just has a bunch of franchise, 10 movie long franchises. The Scream franchise too, all the Halloween movies, just a lot.
Friday the 13th, I think, is 12 or 13 movies and counting if you count Freddy versus Jason.
Oh yeah, that's true.
It's because they always put asses in the seat, once you make it past 3 films, if people are still showing up, I feel like the chances are it's going to go on forever, really. I don't imagine there's going to be a world where even if the principal actors die, for Nightmare on Elm Street might be the only one. No Robert Englund is probably a no deal. They tried to do that remake and it was horrible. But you can put anybody in a Jason mask or a Michael Myers mask, and that's the kind of the beauty of that character, is a voiceless or antagonist that just chops people up and throws them out of windows and all kinds of other fun things. You can do that forever if you want.
Nice.
We're going to switch tones a little bit, a bit of a somber note on today's episode for our little, I don't even know, opening segment here, for lack of a better word. Bad news today. We lost 2 amazing actors. We're recording this on the 25th of July. Paul Sorvino first passed away, widely known for his role as in Goodfellas. He played Paulie, which is kind of the head of the family. Great role, but also in movies like The Rocketeer, Nixon, Romeo and Juliet, the Baz Luhrmann. Baz Luhrmann, is that right? Yes, it is. I thought I had a little tongue twister there for a second. amongst other things. And of course, father to Mira Sorvino, who is an amazing actress in her own right as well. I just saw such a lovely little clip today of her thanking him at her Academy Award win speech, and he's literally sobbing out of pride and happiness, and it's such a nice little lovely moment, and seemed like an awesome guy. And then the other bit of bad news that we had is actor David Warner passed away, who, again, huge, long, successful career. Everything from being Jack the Ripper in Time After Time to Tron to Titanic. He was the little lackey of Billy Zane's character. The first thing I saw this guy in actually was Teenage Mutant Ninja Turtles 2, The Secret of the Ooze. He was the scientist in that, and somebody who is really such a fantastic actor. It's amazing that he was just yeah, fuck it, I'll be in the Ninja Turtles movie. He does a little dance to the Ninja Turtles rap by Vanilla Ice at the end. That's real goofy. And of course, he has a really memorable role. We're all Star Trek fans here in The Undiscovered Country, alongside Christopher Plummer, who was the primary villain in that one. RIP to a couple of greats. It's always sad when you see any actor pass away, whether old or young, but I guess we could take comfort in one thing: both of them have a long spanning career, and it seemed like they really had a full life as actors and put out a lot of great work. So their memory will live on in the form of film and TV. So RIP.
Yep.
All right. Let us have a side quest, shall we? And here we go. It is a guilty pleasure. Oh,
I feel like we're always drawing that one.
Yeah, I mean, there's I think I put 4 or 5 of them in each. I think I did 5 of each of these.
Yeah.
Nice.
But
I think it's time to hear from you, Chris, because I'm sure we've heard from May, and I think I spilled on the OG Dune one time. So
you did.
I think it's over to you, my friend.
I've got the perfect one. So I think it's circa 1995, 96. Filmmaker by the name of John Carpenter made a long-awaited sequel to one of his most popular franchises. So starring Kurt Russell, Escape from LA, which is essentially a beat-for-beat remake of the original Escape from New York. Stars Kurt Russell, Steve Buscemi, Peter Fonda's got a nice little cameo. Soundtrack with everybody from White Zombie to gosh, I'm trying to think who else. Anyway, it's the 90s take on Snake Plissken and that franchise. It is not a good movie, especially when you compare it to the original, which is sort of tense and had all this really subtle world building. This movie is over the top. Famously, Kurt Russell surfs a tidal wave. He's never ridden a surfboard in his entire life, and he surfs a tidal wave through some of the canyons or valleys of LA, and then leaps into a Cadillac convertible to tackle Steve Buscemi. So that gives you an idea of what you're in for if you watch this. It's really bad green screen as well. Also, the finale happens in Disney World, but I think they call it the happy place or something like that, because they couldn't legally say that it was Disneyland. But I love this movie despite all of that. When I watch Escape from New York, I'm genuinely riveted and just in awe of how great that is. When I watch Escape from LA, it's just because I want just a heaping dose of goofiness and just utter I don't know, stupidity, for lack of a better word, because it is very stupid, but I love it anyway. Have you seen this, either of you? Have you seen Escape from LA?
I have not, but I really want to see the scene that you described at the very least.
Oh, you absolutely should. So the premise of why there's a tidal wave is there's like in the beginning, like the little prologue, they set up that LA is separated from the rest of California via a giant earthquake. And they turn it into a prison, basically. So LA Island, like which is called now, is a prison. And like once you're sent there, like that is your life sentence. Like anything goes inside the prison. Like there's no regulation. So like there's like mutants that like will cut off like your body parts, like for plastic surgery purposes. There's all these gangs and factions. I think the one thing that actually has aged really well about that movie that struck me like recently was the president is very Trump-like and his followers are very Trump-like. So he basically says that he predicts like this disaster, like kind of just by luck, that like there's going to be and it's going to be God punishing like the people that were strayed from God's path. And so when the earthquake, he's like unanimously like elected president, basically like almost like 100% votership because everyone's afraid. And like he's got a very Trumpist kind of attitude, even look, like, and how he talks and stuff. And that part has aged unfortunately really well. And it struck me when I was like, Jesus, this is like
kind of
not
like
too far
Contact,
off.
right?
Yeah, I mean more so though. Like when you see it, you'll know
Yeah.
what I mean. Like it's a little bit scary, but in any event, it's worth the like Escape from New York. Do that one first, and then it makes a good double bill because they are very similar films in structure, kind of the way Terminator 2 is, but like one is significantly better than the other. The other one's more fun, but yeah.
Nice.
Well, you've seen it before.
Each one.
Exactly. You've seen this before, right? Well,
you know what? Surprisingly enough, I haven't. I remember seeing trailers for this when I was a kid, and I didn't realize how far back it had been when the original one came out. And it was always one of those cult classics that I heard about, and I thought, I'll watch that one day. And you know what? I've seen stuff from that time period where it was like Demolition Man, like Wesley Snipes and Stallone, and catching up on all the Schwarzenegger classics, like The Running Man. And yet, somehow, I mean, even Johnny Mnemonic with Keanu Reeves, and yet somehow I missed this golden opportunity to go back and watch these two films. So it's definitely on the list. Sadly, I have to admit I have not seen them. So
okay. I mean, the first one is like genuinely like one of the most amazing pieces of like science fiction, like action. It has everything you want in a good John Carpenter film. He did the score, obviously, and it's I mean, like really, really good movie, but not Escape from LA. But that's okay. We love I love it anyway. We'll put it that way.
Nice.
But yeah, Will, I'm gonna turn it over to you now. Let's talk about another like I guess ocean centric movie.
Connected by the water. Yep.
Yeah,
that's right. Under the water, slightly above water for a little bit, but mostly under the water. That's right. We are talking about the classic Crimson Tide that came out. Geez, what year? I'm terrible with years. I'm gonna just go out and say it was the 90s sometime. It's 95. So Crimson Tide, which we got Denzel Washington, Gene Hackman are the two main guys of the film. It's very easy to see why when you start watching. And also the focus, not necessarily, I guess, the main focus, probably the easy picks to choose of if we're debating who the villain is in the film, which we all know watching it. It's a 90s film. They're going to push you towards one character, but it's always fun to sort of nitpick and go back and see if you would argue somebody else that might be at fault, or, it doesn't even have to be the main characters. It could be a side character. But I digress. Let's step back a little bit and talk about what's led up to why there's a confrontation in this movie. And the long and the short of it is that Crimson Tide is a little bit, it's kind of eerily relevant to today's political climate because the film starts out with a conflict that's broken out in Russia, where it's against the Russian government and the separatist movement that's going on. And America's worried because the separatist group has supposedly gotten access to Russian nuclear launch codes and has control of a facility that has nuclear warheads. And so they start deploying American nuclear subs out to different areas in order to be the deterrent against getting hit first, essentially. If they get orders, they're going to go ahead and launch their nukes first. And Denzel Washington plays, I think it's Lieutenant Commander Hunter. He's the XO who's on the boat who goes out. He's assigned to the Alabama, which is commanded by Gene Hackman's character, Captain Ramsey. And he's reassigned when their previous XO was out due to illness. And so they're meeting each other for the first time, getting to understand each other's command style for the first time. And there's a little bit of friction there from the get-go that you can see between the two characters, or a little bit of questionable, not really sure what's going on, but there's a little bit of undercurrent there. And as they go out, they receive a communication from Naval Command that says that, you know, the separatist group has control of those nukes. They're going to start fueling them to launch. They've only got about an hour before it happens, and they got to go ahead, and they've been given authorization to launch their nuclear weapons from the sub. And at the same time this is going on, they come across a Russian sub that's out there too that tries to attack them. They end up getting another communication at one point that gets cut off, and so they're not sure what that's about, which is where the conflict escalates when Denzel Washington's character Hunter says that he doesn't think they should fire their nukes because he's concerned that there's the possibility that the message that came in is actually telling them to stand down. Whereas Captain Ramsey is like, this is nothing. I don't see anything on this message because it cut off. My orders stand. We're going to go ahead and launch. That's where the conflict escalates to the point where they're both arguing at each other in the control room. And and what you either think is realistic drama, or if you go to I imagine, I don't know if anybody specifically who's ever served in the Navy, but I could tell you from looking at Reddit threads, there are quite a few people that would like to tell you this entire movie is based on a false premise. But it's entertaining to watch how the conflict escalates to the point where Hunter tells Captain Ramsey that he's been relieved of command. Ramsey gets escorted off of the control, or out of the control room, to his quarters. Hunter tries to reestablish contact by ordering the sub to go back to the surface. The crew starts to split up a little bit because some people still side with Ramsey and help him try to get back into control of the ship, which automatically means let's go get some guns, let's go storm the bridge. And from there, it just continues to escalate to the point where at the very end of the movie, we do get confirmation that in fact those orders were to say to stand down. But the whole tension is they've got an hour, both this standoff with the crew, this potential mutiny that's going on, all of it. And on top of that, another submarine that's out there trying to sink them while this is all happening. So definitely a lot of entertainment, a lot of, I would say, a good buildup of suspense, and very classic sort of, it's a Bruckheimer, Don Simpson production, so it's very much in line with what you would expect if you've seen The Rock or like Con Air, some of those Michael Bay action flicks. It feels like it, and not just because the music is also Hans Zimmer, but just that sort of, I don't know, it feels like it's all the same world when you watch these characters, because in some respects they take a premise that seems plausible, and then there's aspects of this movie that are so unrealistic and almost goofy, and yet it still feels like it's its own world. It's an environment that makes sense. It's like Armageddon, at some point you don't really question the logic behind it, you just go with it. And so that's pretty much a recap of the film. But yeah, so we've got the main antagonists, you've got Denzel, you've got Hackman going at it. Who do you think may or may not be right in the choices that they make? But there's also a lot of other characters in the film too. Not to mention a dog that is, yes, there is a dog on the ship. So we can't forget about Bear. But yeah. So before we go into a little bit more of the who's the real villain of the movie, I would like to get a little bit of feedback for both of you. I know Chris has already segued into that a little bit about his enjoyment of it. So I think we'll go ahead and we'll start with you, Chris, and tell us a little bit more about what you thought, your initial impressions. You know what, if we all need ranks for this too, like Exo Waterman, you've got the floor, man. Let's go ahead and let's talk shop on that.
Oh yeah, man. I loved this movie. I had such a good time with it. I think all your points. I can tell you my stepdad spent most of his 20 years in the Navy on this type of submarine. I don't know if it's the same class, but with nuclear warheads. He was like WEPS, that's the closest job that he was a
Oh, nice.
senior chief, and he was in charge of like, you know, maintaining torpedoes and the nuclear armaments aboard the submarine. He basically has told me, like, I think this one, Hunt for Red October, like there are aspects of it that are very realistic in terms of like the look and feel of the submarine, some of like the crew interactions. But as far as like how this unfolds, it's complete horseshit. But he still loves this movie anyway, because you know that was his life for a long time. So but no, I had a great time. Like this was very Hitchcockian in a lot of ways for me. Like I think the way that they like the plot device of like this like incomplete message and sort of like what's at stake, like the suspense was super high for the final hour of this movie. I think that the interplay between Denzel and Gene Hackman was just top notch. Those scenes that they kind of finally build towards that confrontation to kind of establish a little bit of what side of the fence they sit on, and their different styles and things like that were great. Supporting characters amazing. I mean, dude, like talk about a movie. I think that if this was like a milk or wine, like this would be wine all day for me. I think this movie is it's just incredible. And yes, it does have that Bruckheimer Don Simpson flair, but you don't really care, do you? Like you're here for the ride. When you're like, I feel like you just got to kind of surrender yourself to a movie like this, and it's very enjoyable once you do. But I think this is even like probably like one of the better ones in those list of movies that you kind of, you know, you named. I mean, The Rock's fun, Con Air's fun. I think this one is a bit more for me anyway. And I don't know if that's the strength of the cast, or maybe that it is pulled back a little bit. Like you're not landing a plane on the Vegas airstrip, for example. You know, or doing some of the crazy shit that you see in The Rock. So maybe like it is maybe a little more like pared down. Tony Scott directed too, man. Like R.I.P. to that legend, famous brother of Ridley Scott, who made the original Top Gun and True Romance, which is like one of my favorite 90s like movie, Tarantino written, of course. But I can't sing this movie's praises enough for like what it is, you know. It is just it's as good as it gets for me, for like kind of like a military action like drama kind of thing. So that's my thoughts.
Excellent. No, that's great, man. And that's actually a good point to mention Tony Scott, because in that respect, I think all the films that I listed off were definitely Michael Bay, which he has a very distinctive flair for the over the top dramatic explosions. So Bay him aside, we can, yeah, Tony Scott's, he's a little bit more pared down with that, but still like sort of the action, like I think Man on Fire, when he directed and Denzel came back to star in. So sort of along that maybe even Domino, I think, Keira Knightley. I can't remember that one for sure, but yeah. All right, Captain Finch, what do you got? What are your thoughts?
I liked it. I'm not gonna be able to sing its praises quite as eloquently as Chris did, I think, but I don't usually gravitate towards war films. I tend to either get overwhelmed or bored, one or the other. So I actually really enjoyed this. The suspense was great for me. I agree. It's very Hitchcockian. I thought that Ramsey and Hunter were really well done foils to one another, and I appreciated that. I also appreciated that you see a lot of the kind of like systemic prejudices and stigmas in the Navy as well, both in terms of like the coded language that's used, all the like fat phobia on the ship, and also just like the stuff people are very comfortable doing to anyone who's like lower ranking than they are or has served less time than they have. So like that, I didn't like pull any punches with regard to that kind of stuff. And I loved Bear. I know it was like trying to show that like Ramsey was kind of unreasonable and eccentric, but I love Bear.
The most innocent character in the entire film.
We need more dogs on subs.
That's definitely true.
So yeah, no, I like them all. I think there was only one point, like it seemed very unreasonable and unrealistic, the like extent to which this escalated. But like in the moment, it was still quite suspenseful, which I think, is a delicate balance. There was one point at which I just kind of laughed because they're acting like children.
Yep. Which part in particular, just out of curiosity, do you remember when it was when you're just like, you guys, I just have to
It's
like
when they're
separate you two in a timeout?
no, it's before either person has like led an arms mutiny, when they're first butting heads over the initial launch, and they're both just like screaming at one another, like at the same time. Ramsey is like, remove this man, and Hunter's like, remove this man, and the camera pans over to, I think it might have been Cobb, one of the other supporting actors, and he's just kind of making this face. I'm like, yeah, me too, buddy.
The throw your popcorn moment for me was definitely when Gene Hackman was going to execute like the little chief petty officer. To me, like, and I was like, I don't know that you could just quietly retire after like threatening to like kill,
right?
like
Did that not come up in the court martial?
I felt like that was maybe a step too far personally. Like, I don't know. Like, I get why that gets the scenes in there. Like, he's desperate, right? He thinks he's saving potentially like the country from nuclear annihilation, but still, the consequences didn't seem to match the actions personally. Sorry to cut
That's
you
a
off,
valid
Nate.
point. That's
that
excellent.
was it. So
Yeah. Well, that's excellent points that you made too. I do think it.
Thank you.
You're welcome. I was trying to think of it. I love how, because I was legitimately curious after watching the film, and I asked a couple of my buddies who are in the army. I was like, just out of curiosity, like, can you relieve somebody of command? I know it's sort of like you see that a lot depicted in film and TV shows. When it's the military, not just the military that we know today, like Star Trek, so futuristic shows, Battlestar Galactica, Star Trek, or just anything that's military based. Like, do you physically have the ability to just, as a junior officer, to relieve a senior officer of command? Or is that just like basically Hollywood's version of saying the Miranda rights every time you arrest somebody for like a cop show, when that's probably not what really happens? And I think the consensus was that you can't do that because it is technically mutiny if you try to physically like quarantine, not, I guess, I'm sorry, I've got wreck on the brain. If you try to physically like detain somebody in their quarters, that you can't do that as like as somebody who's lower rank. If it was somebody higher up, then you could. But I do think it's funny too, like there are so many very opinionated like people that have posted on Reddit or Quora or wherever you want to go, where it's like, this is how this film would have gone down. Denzel would have said, I don't feel comfortable, I don't agree, I don't concur, and that would have been the end of it. It's like they would have disagreed, and then they would not have been able to fire. And it doesn't matter how much Hackman's character didn't like it. It's like, if we don't have an agreement, then we are not launching, and we are getting confirmation from somebody else if we need to. I think there was somebody who posted, and again, this is all just, you take it with a grain of salt, whether or not it's true or not. But I loved, there was one post that I saw that somebody said to the effect of, yeah, I saw a couple of like my higher ranking officers get into an argument in the control room over something, and everybody around was not worried. We were all just taking bets on who was going to win, like like, it's not really an issue. Oh, okay, this is a nice little show that they're putting on. All right,
yeah.
Yeah, but then you wouldn't have a movie. So
also, I feel like, I mean, I'll get to this when we get to the who's the real villain part, but I feel like that's assuming that Ramsey is a logical person.
That is also true. You're right. Which then calls into question of how often do people get like, I guess, psychiatric or psychological exams if you're in the armed forces, and what are the chances that, because
especially for decades, because he's like kind of been in there for a long time.
That's true. Yeah.
The setup for his character, like they kind of paved the way for him as somebody who gets what he wants, like having a dog on the sub, for example, would be like all day against like regs. Like there's little details that they kind of lead, like kind of, or not lead you to believe, but like that demonstrate, show you that his character is given a certain amount of leeway, and probably as a result he's a bit of a child, I think internally when somebody butts up again, despite him saying he doesn't want a kiss ass, like that might be true, but he definitely seems like he wants somebody that is going to obey, like.
Yep. So. That's valid. No, just when like he had his temper tantrum and told Denzel to shut the fuck up. Like, I'm the captain of the ship, so shut the fuck up, like, yeah, it doesn't seem very leaderly, but cool. All right, So, but well, with that in mind, the question is, who do we think is the bigger villain? So May, I'm going to turn it over to you first to give us some feedback as to who you think did everybody worse than anybody else in the film.
I feel like it was never like truly a question for me between Ramsey and Hunter. However, I did have to really think about between Ramsey and Weps. Because Weps manages to fuck over both of them in different ways. Does have a spine at the end, thankfully. But yeah, it's just but I saw the pain in Hunter's eyes when he realizes that Weps betrayed him, and that was a very, very sad moment, and the kind of like the most personally difficult moment too, right? Because like Hunter obviously has a very existential fear about like the world and his family and what's going to happen if they act when they shouldn't act. But like he's also just realized that one of his best friends who was like at his daughter's birthday party doesn't think he's competent, basically. So yeah, Weps is kind of shitty.
Thanks, Aragorn, for giving everybody weapons. Take the ship back over.
Yeah,
right?
For somebody in charge of all those nuclear weapons, he's certainly a fair weather friend. You know what I mean? Like,
right?
So a lot of like stares off into like the distance while he's smoking a cigarette. Like he's just like contemplating, like, do I really want to do this? I don't know.
That was kind of funny. That was another time I laughed.
Everybody's just like, are we going to do this? And he's just like, taking a drag, like, I'm going to wait this one out. But yeah.
Yeah. So like, I get he's in a tough place because I think he'd also served with Razzie previously too, right? Like, so his history of both of them, managed to piss both of them off and betray both of their trust. I still don't think he's a true villain, but I did have to think about him thoroughly for a while. But yeah, with Ramsey, the thing with him is he's characterized throughout as being extremely ego driven, and there's this kind of like work versus family dichotomy. Like whenever people are talking about like the repercussions of what they're doing, it's always like, think of your family, think of your family. And there's a kind of a throwaway comment that came back to me later that like Ramsey's wife left him because he was like so dedicated to the Navy. And I feel like for him, he's placed his work and his pride in his work and his ego above everything else. Whereas Hunter's like, I'm here to do a job, but that job at the end of the day is to protect the world and my family, right? I feel like he's in it for the greater good, whereas Ramsey's in it for more personal reasons. And I think that's ultimately what fuels Ramsey to be kind of a control freak and Hunter to be like, I really don't want to step on your toes here, but this is the wrong call and I have to stand by that. So I would say Ramsey's the real villain in the sense that he's a man who should not have the power he has. And is going to use it for his own selfish ends rather than to, really serve a common good, despite what his old pal that managed to like lead his court martial or whatever says about him. I don't think he was acting in anyone's best interest but his own. So sorry, Ramsey, you're the villain.
Well, that's pretty much how the film seems. I mean, for a 90s film in general, they tend to try to put it in one perspective for that. So you're absolutely right. I mean, I would say that he is definitely set up to be the villain, the antagonist of the film. So yeah, it's excellent points. How about you, Chris? What are your thoughts?
Since I'm assuming we're gonna boil this down to a human character, I would say like nuclear weapons would be the real villain in general. Like
War is the enemy.
That's
yeah.
he said it in they said it in the mess hall. He answered the question right there. No.
No, I mean like seriously, like I think one of the great poignant kind of bits of discussion is around like, hey, like war, like in its pure like pre-nuclear form, like yes, that might have been sort of a necessary thing, but no longer. Like that, like the true enemy like is like just war itself, because of like the high possibility that you could wipe out all life on planet Earth through, well, I mean, it's something as innocuous as two people that can't seem to agree on whether or not to pull the trigger, and decode a message, right? Like something that small could lead to nuclear war. But since I'm again assuming we're gonna keep it to characters, it's definitely the I would say Ramsey is to me like very clearly the villain. And one of the things that really stood out to me working in like leadership, like at my like job, and kind of seeing like different leadership styles, they really delineate those two and how like their interactions with the men. You see Denzel Washington like frequently giving orders and obviously being a superior officer, but taking the time to like get to know the men, to help them solve personal issues, to recognize when people are stressed, to give them outlets for that stress. And he works collaboratively with them, or like I should say more specifically, he relies upon them and lets them know like, hey, like I'm relying upon you. Whereas Gene Hackman is just kind of like, do this like thing. Like you will do what I say, like period. Like we are not a team, like just they're very different leadership styles. And I think that was a huge early indicator to me. It was like, this guy is actually not really a good leader. Like he might get results, but getting results doesn't necessarily make you a good leader at all. I think the willingness to, you have to assume that his threat is genuine to shoot the petty officer. There's kind of that fake out with Vigo where he's like, ah, shit. And you're like, oh, Vigo's called his bluff and he's like, I can't kill you, but I can kill him. And you're like, well, I'm pretty sure you would have had, fate not intervened with the weapons being not fireable, or in Vigo kind of relenting in that scene, Weps. So I think that somebody who says that he believes in the chain of command and military structure, he's also unwilling to accept the consequences of rules that are there to kind of like check his power also, right? So the fact that he won't relinquish command until like he looks around and like his not EXO, but the chief on the bridge is like, dude, he's right. And he tells Denzel privately, I don't necessarily agree with you, but like the rules are the rules. Like if we don't have that, like what do we have? That's why I did it. Not necessarily because you were right, but like that's protocol. And the fact that Gene Hackman feels like it doesn't apply to him, I feel like also big old strike in the villain category. Yeah, that being said, I do think he has a bit of redemption towards the end. I was quite shocked that he like was like, all right, you have 3 minutes. After all that time of fighting tooth and nail, I just expected him to go all the way, so to speak, and just like, you got that far, why do it? But I'd like to believe that his little timeout in his bedroom, he's reading Denzel's jacket. He's doing something that he probably hasn't done very often, which is like he's probably looked at like the service records of people, but not really try to kind of truly like reconcile that with like who they are as like a human being and a person. And I like to think that maybe part of why he relents at the end is because he's trying to reconcile. I mean, he makes some snide remarks about the like Denzel's education at Harvard and things like that, and he kind of looks down upon him because it's not practical education, right? Of like being out in the shit. It's all like theoretical. And I think maybe there's a little bit of mutual respect towards the end, even when they don't have a clear path forward or resolution, just by the actions that Denzel, I mean, he's shown himself to be very capable, and he's shown himself to be kind of determined, and obviously he's gained the respect of, at least, like, I don't know, like roughly half the crew, right? Even if it's not all of them. So yeah, I guess what that all boils down to is I think Ramsey's a bad leader. I think he was willing to go way too far and abandon protocols, mostly because he couldn't bear to relinquish command, or like even admit that he's wrong, all the way to the end of the movie. I thought it was a great interaction. You were right, ellipses, about the ponies or whatever, right? Like, I love that interaction, but it's just like, you son of a bitch, like you can't even like admit it, all the way at the end. Like,
Textbook narcissist.
yeah. I thought his ass should have been in jail personally. Like, I was very surprised that he could retire quietly, as I already
just
said.
A little sprinkle of attempted murder and like other things.
I mean, he's the only one that commits mutiny, really. Like,
yeah,
like Denzel, you can't commit mutiny against somebody who's committed mutiny like at you. It's not like, well, shit, he was successful in the mutiny, so now he's the captain. If I try to wrestle control back, now I'm committing mutiny. Like, that's not how that works. Like, so yeah, I think all those points, like to me, it's very clearly, and I know that's like what the film's pushing you towards, but it is what it is.
So I feel like I'm glad that you brought that part up at the about the mutiny, and then the other like the mutiny and then the counter mutiny, because the thing that sort of cracked me up was it was almost cartoonish how they take over the bridge. All right, now we're going to go down to the weapons control because we got an issue down there, but we're going to take everybody with us who's loyal to us and go down there to do it. I'm going to give you this key that you're going to turn up here. I'm not going to have anybody else stay up here with a gun, or maybe not a lot of people with guns. And so they go down there and just happen to cross paths. Like, Denzel sees them going that way, and you're like, all right, we're going to go this other way. We're going to get guns and do our own thing. And so it's almost like whatever that song is, where it goes like, like they're going through different doors, and
Benny Hill,
like,
yes,
Benny Hill, yeah. And so you're just like, this is so cartoonish, because then they're like, all right, we're going to the bridge, and we're going to stop the missile launch and take that key, and so then they have to go back the other way. And so yeah, that to me, it felt very, like all these other guys on the ship are just like standing, or literally so many shots of a bunch of dudes in a corridor on a sub, just like, what is going on right now? Like, they hear one thing over the intercom about how I have taken, like, when Hunter's like, I have taken command, and then like, what, 20 minutes later, Ramsey's like, I have regained command. And like, I think it's Ryan Philippe, I think is the he was in a few other films after this, like Cruel Intentions, but I feel like this was like his first film, and he's like this.
Was he in this? I missed it.
Yeah,
completely.
He was the dude with the fish tank, where he's just like chilling in the bowels of the sub, and every shot you see of this dude, and it's always like his shocked reaction about, whoa, what's going on, and I'm like, what would this be like for the crew, where it's like every 10-20 minutes, we've got a new captain now. Okay, I guess this is what we're doing. We're diving.
Wait, can we talk about the fish tank? It's like only the captain can have a pet, with the exception of a fish tank.
Like, somebody snuck a freaking tank on a, like, do you
literally
do you
the
really
worst
want
thing to have
water
on a thing that will pitch like this? Like, that's just part of its normal operation. Like that, like, it's not something you want.
Like, no. Oh my goodness, that's what made me feel like, I felt like when I saw that, I was like, this is like Armageddon. This is like, that's what I felt like. That tied me to movies that had like an animal that had no sense being, I mean, besides the dog, obviously the dog too, but we love the dog. But it's like, just certain little things, or like telling the dude who was on the boat, or not, I'm sorry, not the boat, but on the bus at the beginning, to drop and give push-ups, where it's like, hey, that would never happen. I mean, granted, you would do that in like basic training, but pretty sure that's like against regulations to just tell somebody to do that, especially it's on the bus. Is it not?
The people that have
oh
family,
no,
it would be frowned upon, but like, I have family members in the military, and one of my cousins, if the flag was not up at sunrise when he went through the gate of the base, he would put some pretty hard PT on the cadets that were working the gate and things like that. So it's
oh man,
frowned upon, but technically you can give that order like anytime that you
Mhm.
want and just call it PT. And
Ooh,
they gotta do
man.
it. So.
Well, I also, and this is no offense to the, I feel like it's interesting when people try to have overweight folks that are like in the military, because, and this is where I might also need to have myself fact checked on, but I feel like most people are typically in better physical just physical condition. I know there's a lot of jokes about Navy guys, but like I feel like they're at least not pushing the 300-pound. I think that was how much they said the one crew member was who passed away, unfortunately. So it's like, is it really that case from what you're from the experiences that your family members have been through? Or
So the only context I have for that is Marianne did tell me, like in basic, like this is Marine Corps, which is not really like the Navy. They would control both your rations, so like you could go on half rats, as they call it, or double rats, which sounds really gross actually, like when you say that out loud.
Yum, double rats.
Depending on like
Like,
kind of like what your
gotta
like
bulk
BMI
up.
was, and yeah, depending on like what your BMI was, and you could be prescribed like extra PT and things like that to kind of help combat some of that. Obviously you have to pass like certain like physical trials, like to pass basic, but I don't really know after that like what kind of, I'm sure you have to do at least like an annual physical, I would imagine, but again, like like that, my knowledge kind of starts and stops and hearing the stories about basic from Marianne, but it does seem
Nice.
unrealistic though too. I mean, common sense wise, like it seems like you would probably have to maintain a certain level of like like a baseline of like fitness, but I don't know.
I think it's also probably different depending on where in the hierarchy you are, because I didn't have a sense of if the guy that died was in leadership or if he was just kind of another deckhand or what. But I imagine like if you're in leadership, you get a bit more leeway because you're probably not doing all the physically intense stuff anyway.
I know there are like certifications for being on a submarine. My stepdad actually is deaf in one ear because of like an accident, like with like pressure. He was like doing like a dive like test where he had to go down. So far like without like equipment, he had to be able to like swim down to like a certain depth, and it popped his eardrum. But
Jeez.
yeah. So I mean, I know you have to do certain things, and like the dolphins, that was one of my favorite details on their the little lapel. That's like a submarine thing, and it's like a really big deal when you get it. Apparently, I don't know if this is still the case, but like when you got it, when they pinned them on you, like people would like come by and punch them. So you'd be quite bloody by the end. And that was only after they put it into a big old gallon jug with all kinds of alcohol, like just like anything you could think of, and you had to like tilt it back and catch them in your teeth. So like he said, like the strategy was to like glug 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 and get them like quick. But most people, himself included, would vomit a couple of times before they could manage to like get them in their teeth from just like, because it was not, he says, pretty nasty on purpose, like what they put into the gallon jug. So there you learn a little something new about naval initiation. But seeing the little things, because he still got his, and hearing that story, growing up a couple of times, I was like, oh, there they are. That's cool. So that part at least is realistic as far as like the decor on the uniform. But
Oof.
Man, I thought college had some rough drinks. Jeez, man.
Yeah.
Yep. Well, I mean, I guess I have to give my pick too for who I think the villain is in the film. And so I will say I'm pretty sure that Denzel does technically commit mutiny because he's not technically able to remove anybody from the deck. And so once he did, I think technically it was. However, there's a lot of the movie where you're just like, that probably wouldn't happen. I hope it doesn't happen, but who knows? I mean, it's there's always a chance, I suppose, for that. That all being said, I think what really sold it for me for Hackman being the villain at the end of it was the fact, sort of what has already been touched on, which is when he pulls the gun on a crew member, and it's like, no, you could be an asshole of a captain, but once you legitimately try to threaten somebody else in order to get what you want, That's no, you've already turned your back on everything that you stood for. So that was pretty much it for me. I mean, granted, there's a lot of examples to look at for why he is not a good leader, like Chris, like you were talking about. And definitely a lot of not so subtle racism in some of the exchanges with Hunter when they're talking about the Lipin's honor or Lippa's honor. I can't remember there's like
The horsies.
Yeah, they're like there's either an N or there's not an N in there, and I can't remember because I feel like it's mispronounced in the film, but I don't remember it either way. I should actually research that beforehand. But
I will tell you if you want.
Yeah,
keep going. I'll look it up.
Oh no, you're good. But that was pretty much it. I thought, no, I could follow you for certain things. I could follow your logic. I feel like in some respects, looking at Weps, it was on the one hand, you make a great point where it's like, oh, so he's gonna go with these guys now because they pressured him, and okay, now he's gonna go with these other guys, or he's gonna go with Hunter because he got pressured again. So he's just kind of going with whichever direction the wind seems like it's blowing. But I also feel like because of the fact that it's so strange that this even took place to begin with, he's more just like, what the actual, like, what's going on right now? I have two commanders that shouldn't really be doing either of the things that they're doing. So I think it's actually pretty realistic at the end where the at the panel, at the closed door meeting, where the one old white dude is like, you both fucked up, and you're like, well, yeah, but who pointed a gun at who? Like,
right.
I do think it's unrelated to some degree, but also I thought about it, Chris, when you were talking about sort of that a little bit of, you have a little bit more, I guess not necessarily redemption, but you feel like there's a little bit more understanding between Ramsey and Hunter by the end, where he does give him the 3 minutes, and it happens right after Ramsey punches Hunter twice, arguing for him to give over the key. And all Hunter does is just stare him down. And it's I feel like in that moment, it's sort of like he recognizes and respects him more for the fact that he didn't fight him back, and that he actually stood his ground and stood for what he believed in enough that he gave it a shot to see what was going to happen in those 3 minutes. I don't think that's I really don't think there's any way to forgive him for anything else he did up to that point. I think that technically they both probably would have been discharged dishonorably for all the crap that happened. And even as much as I hate to say it, probably also for Hunter's character, if they had decided that he had, I mean, the consensus is in the film is that he led a mutiny, and from what it looks like, it's sort of like, yeah, both sides tried to do some shady stuff they shouldn't have. But ultimately, yeah, Ramsey is definitely the bigger villain for me. I would feel like. I'm surprised nobody wanted to say it was the Russian sub that was going to sink him, but you know what? That's okay. They were going off orders. They were protecting their land, you know. And you've got a U.S. nuclear submarine that's poking around where it shouldn't. So I guess maybe, I don't know.
And you got to think
technically,
too. Supposedly they had like surrendered at that point, right? So like they had every right to shoot at the I mean, if you look at it from their perspective, like you have somebody who's about to launch nuclear missiles, the order probably would be, we don't know if they got this message because they haven't, you know, usually like you send a response that like, hey, like we've received this. And if they didn't get that response, like the orders probably be as tough as it would be for us to swallow to like destroy the submarine so that they don't launch nuclear weapons like on, you know, a nation that's like surrendered.
Right.
So yeah, it's true.
So.
Very Hunt for Red October.
Yeah.
But, yeah.
That punching scene I thought was such a great bit of symbolism on like where their ideologies like lay for like nuclear warfare, right? You have somebody who's like willing to like punch the other, and the other person that's willing to kind of like stare down like the other person and not flinch necessarily, but also not to like retaliate. I thought it was just a beautiful bit of, you know, symbolism for what had already kind of been, you know, the groundwork that had been laid for it felt very on brand for both of them.
Yeah, that really took balls on Hunter's part. Jeez.
Also just unrelated, but man, I would hate to be the guy who's got to clean up after Ramsey's dog every time he takes a
Right?
piss on the side of the deck and it's going through the grates or like wherever that dog takes a dump. Like,
Has the man not heard of puppy pads?
apparently he don't care.
You don't piss on
That's why
hospitality,
Bear is
Bear.
so late. Yeah, that's right.
Yes.
That is awesome. Yeah, it's like Bear doesn't care either. He's just like, I learned from Dad. I don't care. I do what I want. I'll bark at everybody. So
I'll pee on the grass that says keep off the grass.
Yep.
It's just a great way to wrap it up.
Awesome.
Man.
Well, before we move on to doing a little game and drawing our next card, I do have a little trivia question for you guys. If you read this on IMDb, no sweat. So Tarantino famously has a couple of like uncredited like screenwriting like on this. Were you able to pick out do you think either of you could identify like one like bit of dialogue or scene that was Tarantino-esque? I got 2 out of the 3 things that he did. Go for it.
I think I know one.
Yep, go for it.
Yeah.
I think it's when what's his name? The guy who I think is like down comms like comes to like get Hunter and like breaks the guy's nose.
That might be, but I'm thinking more along the lines of like dialogue. So think about like Tarantino dialogue and like where his interests lie, and if there's something that comes to mind. And while you're pondering, Will, what were you gonna say?
I think I read about this, so I might actually I might have cheated a little bit, but I could either say what I think or maybe I can give you a couple seconds extra.
No, go for it, Will.
There's a couple scenes, so like you just say one out of the ones that you
say one of the 2. The Star Trek scene, the reference to Kirk and Scotty, for me, hands down. Any pop culture reference, I'm like, yeah, that's got to be.
Yep. So that's one. There's actually 2 more scenes.
The comics scene.
Yep. Yep. There you go. Yep. The comic scene is one, and those are the 2 that I identified. Like I was like on the lookout for. I'm like, what's got some Tarantino flavor? The third one, which is the most obvious in retrospect, that I like didn't really like pick up on, was the discussion of what the best like submarine movies were and who starred in what. Like, because he's such a film nut. I was like, oh, of course that's him. Like, I don't know why it didn't occur to me, but yeah. So
I feel like that was sort of hard to almost catch though, just because of maybe it was just the volume when I was watching the film, but I didn't immediately pick up on what they were talking about at first. So that's a pretty good point. And yeah, I completely glazed over that. So
same. And then when I read it, I was like, yes. the most obvious thing, which is like movies. He literally owns the New Beverly, like, in LA, and like is all about film preservation and has an encyclopedic brain. But yeah. Neat little bit of trivia there. Will, you've prepared a little game for us to kind of close it out before we draw our next card. I'm very excited for this. Why don't you explain what
Mr. Rotondi?
Yep. So we've been talking over under a lot of the time with the Oscars, but I thought it would be fun to test your knowledge, not necessarily in an over under fashion, but still test your knowledge regardless, on the Razzies. So the esteemed awards, not to be confused with the Sethies, although I have to say the Sethies might give them a run for their money. But I think it was pretty much since like 1980 these things have been going on, where every year they'll do like essentially the worst of the worst for cinema, and in terms of like worst picture, worst director, worst actor, etc. And so I figured I'd start us off, do a little test run, see how we do with this, in terms of trying to decide what the worst film was out of a specific year. And I'll give you some options to choose from, so you can tell me which one out of the 3 or 4 that I'll list you think they are. So how does that sound?
Sounds great. And we're going on to like Razzie's 1, I'm assuming, right? Like that's the metric we're using.
Yep. You got it. So this isn't necessarily to say like, did they get nominated? This is to say, of these, which one took home the prize as the worst of the worst.
Okay.
So all right. This was back. And so this is actually going to be some of these categories are amazing, by the way. This is back in 97. So the category is worst reckless disregard for human life and public property.
Amazing.
Our
I'm ready.
options include, it's going to be good. Our options are Batman and Robin, The Lost World, Jurassic Park, Con Air, or Turbulence.
I'm gonna go out on a real limb and say The Lost World.
Nice.
Because that's a Jurassic Park film I've never seen. Maybe they kill all the humans, who knows?
Your guess isn't bad because they literally bring a T-Rex from the island to like the mainland, and it gets loose and it fucking stomps through like suburban neighborhoods and stuff. So that's not a bad guess.
I'm happy with mine.
Yeah. Just to be different, but I think you might be right. I'm gonna say Con Air, just since I said it earlier in that scene of them landing on the Las Vegas Strip and just like haywire. Just to be different. I've never seen Turbulence. I know Ray Liotta's in that. Also, R.I.P.
R.I.P. Yeah. Ray Liotta, and I want to say like Holly Hunter, or not Holly Hunter. I'm sorry. Jeez. Anyway, her name's escaping me, but also I feel like was in NCIS too. I'm starting to play like 6 Degrees of Kevin Bacon. I'm gonna stop. But yes, excellent choices, both of you. The answer is Con Air. You are correct. Yes.
Well done.
Excellent.
I thought you were right though. To be fair, I was just like, I gotta say something different, but the more I thought about your answer, I was like, that's the right one.
You're welcome. I went first.
That one should have won. Snub. Razzie snub.
Just imagining a kind of guy that gets really upset about Razzie snubs.
They're out there.
Man. We're so close to get them all. So this was back in 99. This is for worst picture. The options were, sorry, I just laugh thinking about some of these films, but Star Wars Episode 1, The Phantom Menace, The Blair Witch Project, classic found footage, Wild Wild West, or The Haunting.
I'll go first this time if you want, May. Do you want to flip flop it?
Go for it, Chris.
I'm gonna say Wild Wild
confident?
West. I'm not at all. But Wild Wild West is my answer.
Wiki wow, wiki wow wow.
I was, I think, in diapers when Phantom Menace came out, so I don't know if it was like contemporaneously viewed as a terrible film or if that was like a later opinion.
It was not well received entirely.
I'm gonna go with Phantom Menace. That's what my gut's telling me.
Nice. So the answer is, and Chris, you were on it, man. Wild Wild West.
Hey,
good job.
Banger of a song though. We had some Cisco. We're going straight to
the Wild West.
Yeah. I have not seen that since its theatrical run. I just remember Kenneth Branagh is in it and Kevin Kline and Will Smith, and I do remember it being bad. Although we did see Salma Hayek's butt, so that every cloud.
Yes. That was funny too, because that was like riding off of like Men in Black fame, I think. It was like the same director, and so they were like, oh, this is gonna be really good. And then I will say I like it more. I don't hate the movie. I actually like it. I think most people don't enjoy it that I talk to, but I actually kind of appreciate it because it is so campy and over the top. If you're watching it to be like the original series, Wild Wild West, it's night and day. It's not even remotely the same thing. But it's I don't know. It was just something quirky and weird about it that I thought I could follow this. It's so over the top and ridiculous, but it's like funny over the top and ridiculous. So I don't know. I appreciated it for what it was. 2010, the worst eye gouging misuse of 3D.
Oh gosh.
Did it go
I think I
to?
know.
Oh, I give her double points if she gets. Go
Yes.
ahead. You can give a.
Do you want to?
If it okay, I'm just gonna like.
Do you want to just throw it out there? Do you want to?
I think it's the third Spy Kids, but that's just my gut.
Okay.
I want to see what
Is
your
that-
options are. That's what came
Yeah.
to mind.
That's
If
all
it's
right.
not on the list, you should give her the opportunity to guess something that's on the list. But if that's on there, then double points if she's right.
So your options are The Last Airbender, Cats and Dogs, The Revenge of Kitty Galore, or Clash of the Titans.
Okay, so it's not.
Actually, I should throw in one more. I gave you 3 options. Also saw 3D. Perhaps based on that title alone, to be it. But since I've thrown it in there, obviously we know that's not really the one.
Right.
I was gonna say, like, I appreciate the.
I felt like I
option,
had to
but-
throw it in there as an option because I can't
Yeah.
just leave you hanging, and because the title's too good to pass up. But yeah, no.
See, the thing is, I think I saw both of the first 2 films, but not in 3D because my parents were cheap. Sorry, mom and dad. I'm just gonna say Kitty Galore.
Nice.
I don't feel strongly about any of these, and since I don't remember what the first one is, I'm going to say Clash of the Titans. I don't even remember what you said for the first one, so I'm just going to go with that by process of elimination.
That's all right. So it's actually The Last Airbender, which was the Shyamalan attempt at doing Avatar, which was eye-gougingly horrible in many ways. But yes, that was it. So
I was gonna say it was a terrible movie. I never saw the 3D version, so I don't
yeah,
know if that was part of it.
that is all.
Sure didn't
good.
help.
No.
Couldn't save it. All right, we're gonna do this a little bit closer to current time. So 2016, worst picture. Did it go to? Oh man, Dirty Grandpa, Independence Day, Resurgence, Zoolander 2, or Hillary's America, The Secret History of the Democratic Party?
Those are all hot contenders right there.
I'm going to say Hillary's America because that's an election year, and I feel like that would have been hopefully made fun of. It sounds like a real bad movie. It's another pick.
I'm gonna say Zoolander too.
Yeah, nice. Okay. So the answer is Hillary's America
Okay, yeah.
was in fact the worst. Yep. Although Zoolander 2, man, there were some definite, like you said, there were some contenders in this group because there were a lot of sequel nostalgia seeking films that not doing so well.
And
Just
Dirty
also-
Grandpa's
Not
is the De Niro Zac Efron one, not like the
Mhm.
Bad Grandpa's the one with Johnny Knoxville, right? Which was actually supposed to be kind of funny.
I think yeah, that's right. I was almost thinking Bad Santa with Billy Bob Thornton. There's a lot of just really weird, like dumb comedy films, but yeah, I think you're right on those. Yeah. Yes. And then I think also on here was, I didn't mention it, but Batman versus Superman: Dawn of Justice was also up as well.
Yeah.
All right,
Was
let's see if
that-
I can get on the board with this one.
I believe in you. I believe it is possible. Like, I mean, I've been there. I
We've all been
understand.
Actually, I don't know if Chris has been there.
There's no way either. We would have to like tag team it to take this dude down.
Yeah, I
like,
know.
there's no way. The only way that we can win is like coming up with. Like,
I've lost games. I've lost games. I don't know that I've gotten the goose egg, but I've lost.
Yeah, Killer Queen.
No. I on this podcast, I've lost before. I have.
Can you name a time when that happened?
I think like the last pitch storm for sure I lost.
Oh, so you
yeah.
had to come up with the okay. Okay.
We only
That's
do
it.
one round though.
That is valid.
Yeah, but I had to watch in shame in the edit how badly I lost at that. Like you just roundly spanked me on that. That was terrible. Anyway,
All right, we're gonna fit. You got it, May. I believe in you. We're gonna channel some good vibes. We're gonna bring it home.
All right.
In fact, if you get this, we'll give you 6 points to tromp out Mr. Waterman over here.
Hey, you're the host. You make the rules. So
It's a
stands.
curveball. No.
I do not concur. Take this man off the.
I don't. I'm the captain of this boat.
I'm the captain, actually, and I do concur. Sorry, Exo Waterman.
Nice. Captain Finch has spoken.
No, that's cool. I do agree to the terms.
So we're gonna go as last year. We're doing 2021, baby. So
Ooh.
yeah,
Goodness.
it's gonna get real quick. So the options for worst picture are Space Jam: A New Legacy, Infinite, which I'm pretty sure was like that Paramount Plus movie that came out with Mark Wahlberg. The Woman in the Window, or Diana the Musical.
I think I know. Diana the Musical.
You gonna lock that in?
I'm gonna lock that in.
All right. XO, over to you. Do you confirm these orders?
We got Infinite, The Woman in the Window, Diana. What was the other one?
Space Jam.
The new one.
Yeah.
Welcome to the jam.
I'm again, just to be different, I'm gonna go Infinite. It's another one I
All
don't feel
right,
strong
Marky
with.
Mark. He's locking it in for Marky Mark. All right, so the winner for this round is Diana the Musical.
Yes!
You
Yay,
got it.
good job,
May.
Ray.
Bing, bing,
I
bing, bing,
suffered
bing,
through
bing,
it
bing, bing.
too. My friends wanted
Did
to
you?
hate watch it, and like we hate watched it over Discord.
Oh boy.
I'll never get that like 2 hours back, and it makes me mad.
What's worse, that or Cats? Have you seen the abomination that's Cats?
Oh, I
The new
refuse
one?
to.
Ooh.
I
Really?
refuse to.
I've
For
heard that
Cat.
looks like a something. I'll tell you.
Diana is just like the songs are just they're.
Mhm.
It's a very sad, tragic story, right? And
Yes.
it's like the songs focus on all the wrong parts. They're just badly written songs. The costuming is horrendous. The casting is terrible. Just I can't think of a redeeming quality.
I heard it was bad. Yeah.
They even fucked up
Unfortunately,
the wigs. Like
even if it was good, I
Wow.
don't know that like I would have necessarily watched it just because like I'm picky with musicals, but it doesn't help. Didn't they do like a storyline on The Crown that same year as well, featuring her?
and
Mm.
there was a like biopic starring Kristen Stewart too that came
Mhm.
out either that year or the year like around it. So like lots of content on Diana.
Yeah.
None of it as good as the musical, apparently.
Man.
Well done, May. Good
Thanks.
job.
Yeah,
Having sat through
yeah.
that movie, I feel like you deserve, from the sound of it, it sounds like you deserve
Extra
to win,
bonus
so.
points.
I mean,
Yep.
you technically won, Chris, but you won the popular vote. You looked
man.
for college.
You've been certified. Oh
Yeah.
man, nice, awesome, you guys. Well, I really appreciate you being willing to try that out. We might have to throw that one out there again in the future, but
No, that was a
lot of
blast.
fun.
Because
I
I
love
loved it. It
that.
was like a specific category in those years. That was good times, man.
Mhm.
Good times.
Excellent.
Sweet.
All right, well, back over to you, sir, for the next exciting part of our I guess our order of events here as we finalize and wrap up for this go round.
Yeah, so we're gonna draw our next main quest, but first we're gonna bring in a special guest through the magic of editing. So in 5 seconds, you're gonna see a completely different configuration and somebody else. Abracadabra. Wow, we multiplied by what 33% or so here. I don't know, math's hard. We have a special guest here from the ECG podcast and longtime friend, colleague, Mr. George Arevalo from Miami, Florida. What's up, George?
Going on? Happy to be here. How's it going?
Welcome.
Yeah, hey man.
You
Ooh,
got the
Chris.
distinct honor of being our first guest.
Yeah, and I think this is actually our 10-year anniversary of knowing each other, Chris, because I got that nice suite
$250
pre-tax from work. So
for 10 years. Yeah. That's right. It would have been 10 years ago Saturday. Like we would have met each other at training for our company.
Yeah.
Aww.
So that's true, man. Very special anniversary. It's only fitting then that you're on the podcast as our very first guest. Well, welcome. Tell us a little bit about yourself, man. Like, what's your background in movies? Do you have a favorite movie or a movie that was impactful to you growing up?
Yeah, well, my name's George. No surprise there. I was born in Peru, but pretty much raised down here in Miami, Florida. Background in movies. I mean, I love movies, but given that I came here at such a young age, everything was a little bit behind. It took me a while to get accustomed. So I missed a lot. There's a lot of classics that I haven't seen. And just over the years, I've been trying to compile lists of things that I have to watch. So a good chunk of the movies that you guys have done here, I haven't even seen. I haven't seen Terminator 2 even, which or either any Terminator. I've seen bits and pieces of it. Like I know enough of what's going on, but I've never sat down and like watched that movie, So but I am quite behind on the podcast, but I did see I actually just saw that I have seen a few of the recent ones. So I have seen The Prestige and Equilibrium and No Country for Old Men. But a lot of the ones you guys did at the beginning, I have not seen. So, favorite movie for me, it's a toss up between two. It's got to be the Godfather Part 1, and The Empire Strikes Back. That's probably my two favorite movies, which obviously are old movies that took me a while to come to get around to seeing. But those are probably two of my favorite movies of all time. I don't know that I've sat and thought about specific one. You could swap in The Godfather 2, but I'm gonna go with the original.
They're solid choices.
Yeah, I think
and don't feel bad about Terminator 2. I saw it for the first time last month. So
right. So there's a bunch. Like now, well, recently with was it Top Gun Maverick coming out? Now everyone knows that I haven't seen the first Top Gun either.
Yeah.
So it is what it is, but I'm trying. I'm getting around to it.
It's hard. And one of our mottos on this podcast is like, why we love doing it is to not only introduce others to the movies we love, but to experience some movies for the first time, and why we like having our collaborative list. The last, I think, 2 movies we've seen or have been first time watches for me. So Crimson Tide and Wreck. I had seen neither of those, and I really enjoyed both. So no worries here, no judgment. We have a couple rules: no judgment or snobbery allowed. And then hey, we are going to fuck up. Like, just don't like rake us over the coals too bad. Like, we're gonna say some shit that's flat out wrong on this podcast. So no worries there, man. Well, who's ready to? Oh, go ahead. Sorry.
Yeah, I think I've been pretty good with like movies that came out after maybe like 2005 or so. Like, because I go to the movies a lot. Like, I'll watch every Marvel movie on like the premiere date, stuff like that. But with the older movies, the classics, some of them don't hold up as well to me watching them for the first time. So that's where you kind of lose me. Like, I haven't finished Pulp Fiction. That's another one that Chris gives me shit about. Like, I couldn't get through it. I'm gonna try it again. But I didn't get through it. Natural Born Killers I didn't like, but I like a lot of Tarantino's other movies that I've seen that are a little bit newer. So I think I have a little bit of a disconnect with some of the older stuff. It has to be really good for me to still enjoy it to this day.
That's right. We all have our personal taste, man. No, I'll go. I only give you shit for Pulp Fiction because like I'm a firm believer, unless a movie is like really bad or like pushes like some kind of like trigger or like button, like you should finish it, like even if you're not enjoying it. Like, it's like, what's an hour and a half, 2 hours? Because there's some movies, if I had stopped at like the first 20 minutes, 30 minutes, like I probably wouldn't have liked, or I like some of my favorite movies kind of start off that way, where I'm like, it's not really feeling this, and then
I can name you a movie that I'm pretty sure if any of you guys have finished, wish you had not.
Oh yeah, what do you got?
Go for it.
Probably The Human Centipede.
There we go. So
I've avoided starting.
Yeah, I will assure you won't finish that movie. And
I would, though. That's the thing. Like, my threshold is pretty high.
What purpose?
For fucked up stuff.
I can assure you your life isn't going to be any better by finishing that movie or starting it, for that matter.
Yeah. I mean, that's a fair point. I've never sought it out, but if I were to sit down and like watch it, like I would see it through. Like,
Chris, I believe that's called the sunk cost fallacy.
Yeah.
it's, you know, again, it'd have to be pretty bad. Like, put it that way.
Okay.
Anyway,
well, let's. Who's ready to see what we have for our next movie? So we did draw a card. This is me splicing this in. You won't know what it is, audience, because I don't want to reveal the films prematurely. But it was another will card. So let's go again. All right. So the next category is actually going to be a camp or cringe.
Ooh.
And it is number 3. So camp or cringe is where we take a film and decide, is it camp or cringe? So a cheesy movie, over the top movie. And the pick for this week is Chris pick, Snakes on a Plane. So Snakes on a Plane, is it camp or is it cringe?
I'm so ready.
We'll be discussing this. Who has not seen Snakes on a Plane? All right, so 2 of you have not seen it. You're in for a treat, my friends.
Oh my goodness.
So yeah,
I mean, I've seen all the memes, but and never actually watched the movie.
Well, that's exciting. Then we get to broaden your horizons a little bit, and you're going to be glad that you did. Hopefully, if not, that's okay. We'll talk about why it's cringe in that case. But, so there you have it. That is our next film. And I'm very excited to see what everybody makes of this. I'm down to do this as a watch party if you all wish. This is a great one to hop into a Discord chat and have a beer or two. I promise you.
Definitely some beverages will be needed. Yes.
Sounds great. All right. Well, George, we'll see you on next week's episode. Thanks for being our first honorary guest. Everybody else, thanks for tuning in. Of course, May and Will, thanks for being on the show as always. If you like the show, please give us a like, share, a subscribe, especially the share part. Like, recommend it to a friend. We've been growing slowly and steadily, and we appreciate that. We know a lot of that's word of mouth, but we really do appreciate it. You can engage with us on social media at ScreenQuest Pod on Twitter. We do Friday film polls. And we may even do a giveaway at some point in the near future. So if you don't follow, now's your chance to get in there while the getting's good. So until next time, we love you. Bye.
Bye.
Bye, guys.
Next week.